Hello everybody, 6-Speed Dakota here, and the video you're about to watch is how to fix a P0401 EGR Insufficient flow code on a F150. This particular model is a 99 with the 4.6 Triton motor. Now there's two things that can cause this problem. The first one is blocked EGR passages. The ports are very small that come out through the plenum and into the actual intake. They get clogged up as one problem. The other problem is the DPFE, or the delta pressure feedback sensor. That wasn't the problem in this case, and unfortunately, unless that becomes a problem, I can't show you that immediately, but in this case the problem was we had a blocked EGR. I had actually fixed this problem before, and then we had a complaint of a rough idle or an erratic idle. So what we did is we pulled it all apart. I cleaned everything, and yeah, we just put it all back together, and it's been fine ever since. No check engine light after I cleared it or anything like that. So unfortunately, I was under a time crunch with this thing, so you're just going to have to bear with me. I'm going to have to voice over the entire thing, so I apologize if the sound's kind of crappy, but you know, and obviously the soundtrack that you're hearing, other than my voice coming from the voiceover, is my friend and I just kind of being idiots like we usually are. But you know, I thought myself it was quite funny. But I don't know what it's like to the normal person. But yeah, so basically for this job, you're going to need a whole schwack of gaskets, and unfortunately, nobody sells them as a kit, so I'll make sure that I post all the Fel-Pro part numbers down here in the description. And yeah, that, and you're going to need a can of brake cleaner or choke and throttle body cleaner or intake cleaner or whatever. I like the brake cleaner, it's a little bit cheaper, and since I was pulling everything off the motor anyway, it would made it a lot easier to just use the brake cleaner. You don't have to worry about getting brake cleaner into the intake and it burning and whatnot and messing up your O2 sensors and that kind of thing. That's why I used it. But if you're planning on doing this with the intake all on the vehicle and just cleaning out the EGR port, then I do recommend using a can of Intake Medic or something like that. That's what we did. That's why the intake elbow didn't look so bad. But anyhow, stuff you're going to need for this job, you're going to need a 10mm socket, an 8mm socket, you need a 1 1/16 wrench. You could try to use a big crescent wrench, but it's kind of tight. That's to get the EGR pipe off of the EGR valve. It's a little difficult to get in there. I'd recommend the wrench, but you know, to each his own. And of course a screwdriver, a couple of different ones, you know, to take the intake off, that kind of thing. And your brother's toothbrush in order to clean out the EGR passages and that kind of thing. So, you know, your basic set of hand tools. There's no rocket science to this job, really. It's just on a scale of 1 to 5, I would rate this job at maybe a 2.5, something that the average do-it-yourselfer would find moderately challenging, since, you know, it is a little bit involved and there are a bunch of vacuum lines that you got to make sure they go on properly. So, enough of me babbling. Let's get started. Alright, so the first step, what I'm doing is I'm using my 10mm socket to remove the 3 bolts that hold the plastic cover on that says 4.6 liter Ford. There's 2 on the driver's side, there's 1 on the passenger side, and just pull that plastic piece off, and then we'll continue on with the next step.
Same company that makes it. For some reason, it hasn't been doing its refuse to lock thing now, so I don't know if I should just leave it or replace it under warranty anyway. First step. First step. That's what Cyrus always, because he's Farsi, right? They don't have the in their language, so it's first step.
Alright, so your next step is to remove the intake tube. So what I've done is I've actually removed the hose clamp that holds the intake tube onto the filter, and I'm just leaving the filter in its little box. And I've unplugged the plug for the mass airflow sensor, which is out of camera view. That little hose right there is the PCV tube. There's no clamp that holds it on. That little clamp there that I'm undoing is the union fitting, the coupling that connects the intake tube to the throttle body.
Can you cut this section of the grass? It's like
And that guy there is the tube that connects the intake pipe to the idle air control port. And don't forget about the intake air temperature sensor right there. So take that and set it someplace safe. Be careful, the mass airflow sensor is kind of sensitive, so be careful not to damage it.
Nothing right now, nothing but a good parts holder.
And then we take that tube off that connects the idle air control to the intake pipe.
There's only one problem, this thing's like hot.
This intake was recently put on, so it's not like it's really stuck on there.
Since all you did was leave church with it.
Alright, so now I'm going to disconnect the throttle linkage. There's a throttle spring and 2 cables. And the second cable's for the cruise control. If it's not equipped in your vehicle, then you shouldn't have that cable there. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm disconnecting the spring, the secondary spring, with a pair of pliers. And then you have to actually open the throttle up in order to pull the cable out. So you got to pull the cable up and back, and then it should just slide right out, just like that. Now the cruise control cable, you kind of just got to give it a little bit of a pull, push towards the back of the vehicle, and it should just pop right off its little post. It's a little bit stubborn. There we go. So next step, we're going to remove the vacuum line from the side of the motor. It supplies vacuum to a bunch of the accessories. It actually sits on the side of that little spacer elbow thing that the throttle body mounts to, and it mounts to the upper plenum. And then the next step, once we got that vacuum elbow out, is we're going to unplug the idle air control motor right there, and the throttle position sensor right there.
Oh, you fixed it. What do I owe you?
Come on. It's a little bit stubborn, that one.
$100 or is it nothing? Nothing.
There we go. So that vacuum line there is the EGR valve. And that guy that I'm touching there is the DPFE sensor. It's supposed to measure the differential in pressure through the EGR pipe that goes from the manifold up to the valve. And that's the computer can calculate how much flow there is. It goes through restriction and creates a pressure difference. So that's also a common problem, but it wasn't the problem in this case. Now on the top there that I'm unplugging right now is the evap control, so basically the evap tube.
My dad can do it so well.
It's a little bit crusty for some reason. I guess the truck is kind of old. It was zip tied to a couple of things. There is an amplifier in this, so we had to pull that off. Alright. So we're going to set that aside. Now the next step, there is actually a tube in behind there. Now that's kind of crusted on there. So unfortunately I couldn't get that off. Now there's another vacuum line that connects a brake booster.
I was watching the Nerd Movie trailer. It's like,
but that one's a little bit more difficult to get off. You actually have to pull the nut off of the EGR valve towards the back of the motor. There's a nut and then there's a stud that comes out. And I'm actually trying to pry the vacuum line off first. So just take that nut off that holds the bracket, that holds that entire line onto the EGR first. Do as I say, not as I do. I'll figure it out eventually.
Take it off before.
no, not that one I didn't. This one I did though.
Short arms.
Shut up.
Short arms. Short legs.
Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm using a 10mm deep socket, a ratchet. Now I'm undoing the nut that holds the bracket, that holds the entire brake booster line, actually the bracket that holds that line up and holds it to the manifold. So it's just basically one nut, it's a 10mm head on it. So pull that off, pull the tube out, and then in behind it's actually a stud with a hex nut on the end, and that's what holds the EGR valve to the throttle spacer.
What's this? Yeah. Well, get married and have kids and then save up some money and go. There's no point.
You can't do both. You can marry and have kids, and you can't save up money, you know, or you can save up money and not have get married and have kids.
I don't know. She doesn't seem like the type that would suck your money dry, to be honest.
So there's that bracket I was talking about right there. So we're just going to set that one aside.
True. You're terrible.
Alright, so now the next step is to get the EGR valve off. So there's two 10mm bolts that hold the valve to the side of the manifold. And then there's that 1 1/16 nut that holds the EGR tube onto the EGR valve. Now that's what I recommend the wrench for. It's a little bit tight to get in there.
Yeah, I put the new Taylor Swift album on my phone.
It's like that.
It's really good.
Good. My girlfriend, she's like, there's 5 good songs on the rest suck.
Some of them aren't so great, but yeah, they're...
Well, I told her, well, you know, I might get it. I asked her, well, is Taylor Swift on the front seat? Well, I might get it, you know, the Katy Perry principle in mind.
Katy Perry.
What do you mean? You bought the album to look at the cover. It's cheaper than a porno.
Hey, once again, G-rated.
Graphic?
This preview is intended for your ass. You know what? Seriously, I will buy that movie when it comes out, the nerd movie. He thinks it's going to be out by next year. Well, the problem is, right, is that with an independent film and an independent filmmaker, things take time to get done, right?
Yep.
That's the hardest part. Like, he's done a bunch of different films. They never really published them, though. Luckily, this thing isn't super clean.
No, I haven't been underneath it for a while. Under here.
Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm pulling the EGR pipe out of the valve once I unscrew that screw there.
We should do that, actually.
There's a lot of threads to it, so you kind of got to be patient with it.
Like actuator. And then we can go pick up the filter and the oil after. I guarantee they have a filter for it. And even if they don't, a Mopar...
PH2.
I know, we know that a Mopar
It's the
filter...
second most common filter from Ford.
Well, and you know what? That's pretty much the same thing as a Mopar filter. The Mopar filter is just a hair shorter. Hence the fact that when we went in here the last time, or the first time, we found a Mopar filter on it. Oh, seriously, it doesn't matter what the length is.
Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm using my 10mm deep socket again. You have to use the deep socket for the one on the back at least, because you have to get over the little stud that sticks out.
You know what?
So there's two 10mm bolts that hold the EGR valve onto the actual side of the throttle body spacer. So once that's done, pop it off, and now we can proceed to remove the throttle body.
The European models.
European models. You had to guess. And some of the oddball Volvos. Like, Volvos are ridiculous, though. 6 filters to change on those things. 3 oil filters and 3 fuel filters. Some of them were only 5, but others are 6. Did I put anti-seize on there? I can't remember. It might not never cease.
I'm saying it was a good time.
You know what, you don't really have to take this EGR off here right now, but honestly it's a lot easier with this thing standing still. Especially if the thing's stuck on there.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing it while I'm driving down the road, you know, it's going to be kind of hard.
The thing is, if you're trying to do this, that came off real easy. Because there's no gasket to stick it on, there's just silicone.
Alright.
It's too bad it's not like the really old style ones where you can reach underneath and pull up on the vacuum pot. Try to make the motor stumble and die. Alright, now for the fun part. Now we gotta get these bolts.
Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm using an 8mm socket on an extension in order to remove the 4 bolts that hold the throttle body spacer onto the intake plenum. Now you may want to remove the throttle body. I kind of regret not doing it. So you may want to remove the 4 throttle body bolts first while it's still anchored to the plenum. Unfortunately, I'm trying to climb my way up there. It's kind of, truck's kind of a little bit too tall for me. But there's 2 bolts on either side. One's kind of a little bit buried underneath the cowling, but as long as you could kind of stay diligent and work your way through, a long extension's not going to work, as I figured it out right there. So maybe about a short 2 or 3 inch extension's perfect, and then the 1 bolt in the very back on the passenger side, you might just have to take the extension off and just reach in there with the ratchet.
There's one. The problem is that, oh jeez, where's the other bolts? Where's that gasket? Whoa.
Okay.
Scared me. Were you just changing the strips on it?
No, the whole blade.
Then why is that blue strip there?
That's the protector.
Oh.
If I can get the old one off.
You know why I use the Bosch ones though? Is because I've had those things for almost 3 years.
Once again, I think my living conditions are a little worse than yours.
I wouldn't say that because you've seen the...
Dude, you bitch every time you come down my driveway.
I'm just being a smart ass. You know that.
More like a dumbass.
No, you know...
He's smart as
Oh, shit. I'm the one that's frickin' straddling your engine.
I'm the only one who will come over though.
Come over, come over, come over.
Come on over, come on.
Oh, shut up. You just ruined my cool Kenny Chesney moment by putting in a Shania moment.
Shania.
Shania. There's your Shania.
Yeah,
I'll eat your turd. You're finer than hell. We're talking world record gator shoot. Don't eat and then treat. Start with proud of sec OTC. I had no idea what OTC meant until I actually looked it up. I was like, oh, over the counter. Ah, you know, that makes sense. I don't know, man. Another thing we should change is that brake fluid looks pretty nasty.
Call the Lord, go.
No, I don't want to do that today. I'm not doing brake fluid today. Not a chance.
Oh, the brake fluid. I said hose. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to change the brake hose.
Hose around, man.
Had fun doing that on the S10 and the Crown Vic.
And your lesson, don't do it again.
What? If I have to change a brake hose, I have to change a brake hose.
I'm gonna buy an S10.
If one had a junk motor, that I could easily cheaply put a new one in and flip it for...
Oh, screw that. If it's got a junk motor, put a 454 in it.
But there's no return on investment, though.
Who cares? You got a 454.
Yeah, there's definitely no return on investment with a 454.
Hey! Sell it to some stupid high school student.
Yeah, it's got
That's a little fast truck.
with a big block.
Yeah, I get great gas. I used to get great gas mileage.
Used to get.
And then I souped it up and they go really fast. Like, oh, it goes fast? Alright, I'll take it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was less in high school.
What are you entitled?
Well, pop the hood on the Crown Victoria. It's a V8. I'll buy it.
It's a Mustang engine. Well, even so, wasn't that? I mean, it's made less power than this thing. 220? I think it was 220. The high output was 240.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, that's stock. I mean, the 302 you can put shit.
We still had it. Oh, the fun we could have had.
Oh, buddy. 10 and a half compression, solid lifter cam, like 650 horsepower later.
Yeah, all the cops will know me.
No, you just put a real quiet exhaust on it.
My vehicle's gonna be like me. I'm not quiet.
No, but you know how much fun it would be to do that?
That would be hilarious.
Oh, buddy,
Mustang,
that thing would be Mustang. Mustangs and Camaros, buddy. I'd be moving up to Corvettes here.
Can you imagine I smoked the doors off a Corvette like Granny O'Deal? Oh, sorry, it's the Mafia car. I would totally start dressing like an Italian. I would even buy a suit.
Can I give him the clamps?
I'm sorry, Tony. It is not working. You have to go Bubba.
What was the guy's name from Mafia? Was it
What, the game or
the game?
Vito.
Vito, that's it.
Vito's good. I should know that. I've beaten the game 8 times.
Holy shit, son.
It's a long game, but it's so good.
Okay, so now that you got the throttle body loose, there's one big fat line in the back, and that's actually the positive crankcase ventilation line, the PCV line. The other's just the breather, so when you pop that off, the entire assembly comes right out, and make sure that you take the gasket with
It looks like
it.
it's brand new, too. Obviously, we're going to replace it. It's actually really pliable, which I don't know if a metal gasket...
Funeral service at your church, Jeremy?
Yeah, for that Kron guy.
Is that the guy that committed suicide?
No.
Oh, yeah.
So this is, how old was this guy?
He was a couple years under my mom.
Okay, so now what I'm doing is I'm just cleaning the gasket surface. I'm not blasting a bunch of brake cleaner down there to wash down the cylinders. So just, if you're going to use any brake cleaner around there, what I did is I just sprayed someone a rag or a paper towel. I think I blasted a little bit in the intake, but just don't gob it on there so that it all goes down into the intake. So if you do it in light quantities, it will evaporate.
Just before they were in the hospital. But
Well, he died in hospital, I know
I
that.
know that. The mom was a recovering drug addict, so the baby had some issues. So
Justy's got a couple of friends where I think the mom had some. There was a drug addict. Like, they're adopted.
oh, yeah.
I'm not going to go too hardcore in here with the brake cleaner because I don't want to. Look at, you could always put a 2-barrel carb on here.
Oh yeah, let's go backwards.
I was going to put a 2-barrel on it. Oh yeah, so that Carlson has a 305 2-barrel on it, or had a 305 2-barrel in it. It's right now in the guy's garage, but the thing was totally shot.
Yeah.
There's no way it was going to live. Because it was freeze cracked and you could see that. But not only that, but not only was it freeze cracked and you could see it, but it was it was actually rusting out. Like the water was seeping. My grandpa quit for a bit.
Alright, so now we're going to remove the two 8mm bolts that hold on the idle air control motor. Now this is the root of the problem. Now be patient here because these bolts might be a little stuck in there. These steel bolts and an aluminum housing.
Yeah, so time. Me? No, I never had that problem.
It's still a and pure boy.
This thing's actually pretty good too. Oh, there we go.
That's okay. You'll start figuring things out once your balls drop.
Shut up.
Oh, speaking of the devils. Oh, devil. Make it devil.
So next, take out the 4 bolts that hold the throttle body on. There's one at either corner. And these things are really, really stubborn. I had to kind of skip a little bit because, I mean, they're really stubborn. They are, once again, they are steel threads, or steel bolts going into aluminum threads. They kind of tend to lock themselves together. So, once again, just kind of be careful with that.
That one's always on at Christmas time.
You know, not a great movie though.
It is, it's great. Shut up. You have no taste in movies.
Sure I do. I watched the original Red Dawn. That was an awesome movie. Oh, you know what my dad was watching last night? Hot Shots Part 2. With Charlie Sheen.
Oh, really?
Charlie Sheen is Rambo. Oh, it's so funny. Part 2. Okay, that is seriously annoying. How long do you have to run it for?
Supposed to say about a minute, so.
What's the point? I told you I have liquid Rain-X. You could just use that. Holy God, that thing's really on there. People think aluminum's so soft. I've stripped bolts in aluminum, or I've like broken bolts in aluminum before. Typically, give me a better deal too.
Alright, so now that we got the throttle body off, or I'm just about to get the throttle body off, we're going to peel the gasket off it as well. And then we're going to start the cleaning process. So there's the throttle body.
You want to die?
And right in the background there you see the idle control motor. So there's the throttle body gasket. Everything came apart quite nicely actually. So that's the spacer there. So the little port at the bottom there, I'm just blasting with brake cleaner now, is the EGR port. And there's two little holes right at the bottom. So that's the idle air control ports that I'm blasting cleaner in, and those are pretty dark too. What happens is exhaust gas gets in there and kind of makes a mess out of things when it condenses and the carbon kind of comes out of suspension. Now, obviously, if those labels, you know, they're for factory assembly, but if you want those labels on them, don't spray them with brake cleaner because it just stripped them right off. And, you know, just make sure that it looks clean on the outside. You know, don't spend too much time here. The inside's where it counts.
Ah, here's your problem right here. EGR port fail. Yeah, that is the problem. The problem is right there. Zoom. There's the problem.
Now, Ford fans don't hate me for this. We're just kind of goofing around. My friend's an avid Ford fanatic. And, you know, I like all domestic vehicles. So don't hate me for this. We're just having a little bit of fun.